First and foremost, this will most likely be my last BDO video, and the purpose of it will be to address the one question that I'm always asked: why I quit. Out the gate, one of the biggest original factors was my real life situation. Currently, I'm in a transition period with my work, so not only did it take some time away from gaming, but also there was a chance I'd be moving back to the US, and well, I played on the C server, so there's that. But if we're strictly talking video game material, ultimately it was the content and progression of BDO that killed it for me. I want to first mention that I definitely wouldn't trade my experience with BDO for any other game, because I definitely had some of the best experiences in a video game with BDO. There are a lot of highs that I'll never forget playing this game. Most of you know all the pros to BDO, so I won't go over those. I'll just go over the issues I had with the game that greatly factored into me ultimately quitting the game. To be fair, using the term issues is in itself unfair, because these aren't really issues, they're more like factors that led to my burnout of the game. So yeah, let's go with that. First, we have to establish my experience with this game. I played for about a year and a half, non-stop, fully committed, and definitely reached Endgame. I experienced almost every aspect in the game, which included the player-driven content, by going as far as hosting my own personal tournaments. I don't think anyone can argue that I have a pretty good overview of this game from start to finish. So here are a few points. The first point I want to make is that this game feels very single-player-y. There just simply is not enough team-oriented progression content. Most of the content that you do with others in this game is what I like to call performance content. What I mean by this is, in most MMOs, PvP MMOs, you have your progression content, which is the content you go through in order to get stronger or get geared. Then you have your performance content, which is where you get to show off your skills, gear, progression. It's where you go out in PvP. There's a lot of group content in that performance content department, but very little in progression content. Considering most of your time in BDO is going through the progression content, it gets really lonely and boring because you're always playing solo. Speaking of progression content, that's the second point I want to talk about. The progression content is something I really didn't enjoy. Pretty much all the progression content is either life skilling, which you do alone, or grinding, which you also do alone. Unless you're grinding Miramach, which is the one spot you grind as a group. Regardless, like most sandbox MMOs, the whole objective of the game is to get stronger. You get stronger by progressing your gear, which you do by making silver, the name of the game's currency. The absolute best way to make silver in this game, hands down, is to grind mobs. Life skilling allows you to make silver at a lower rate, but with less effort. I've tried focusing on both. Life skilling is okay, but I'm essentially just playing Farmville, which is, to be honest, okay for any MMO if it's a side thing. I've tried focusing on grinding, but that was just mind-numbingly boring. Considering the main objective of BDO is to make silver, and pretty much the only way to do that is to grind, a vast majority of the time you spend playing BDO is grinding. 90% of the progression content in BDO is grinding, and most of your time spent playing BDO or any other MMO is spent in the progression content. The fact that all you do is repeatedly kill the same mobs over and over and over again for days, weeks, months, even years, I just couldn't do it anymore. That's all you did. Later on, I literally couldn't stay awake after 10 minutes of grinding. The hardcore players spend hours grinding every day. It's like, if you enjoy the progression content of a game, then it feels like the opposite of a chore to progress. I personally hated fucking grinding mobs for hours on end, because that was pretty much all the content of this game, the progression content at least. Which leads me to my next point, making gains. Okay, so you spend all that time grinding, but for what? In every MMO, you grind so that you can make gains. That's your reward. That's literally the whole point of every MMO, progression. Early game in BDO, you will make consistent gains, and considering the vast majority of players are either at or below soft cap, gains come around quite often. When you make gains, it gives you incentive to go out and grind, regardless of whether you enjoy that grind or not. You're able to get through grinding sessions because of the gains you make. What happens when you stop making those gains? Or even worse, if you go backwards? It's like, if you enjoy the actual progression content of it, then it's okay because you enjoy the content. Think FPS games, first-person shooter games. You enjoy the actual games you participate in, so really, if you make no gains on your character, it's okay because you enjoy the actual content. But what if the actual content sucks dick and is boring as fuck? Well, that's kind of how I began to feel when I got to late game. As most of you know, the way gear progression works in this game is totally RNG based. Not only is it RNG, but you actually downgrade or blow your gear up completely by failing an attempt to enhance your gear. Early on, it's not a big deal because the cost per upgrade is so cheap that after a few grind sessions, you can just simply try again. However, when you get over 260, 270, 280 AP, the amount of silver it costs you just to attempt an upgrade is absolutely insane. You can't even simply buy the upgrades via Marketplace because no one lists pen gear. You're literally forced to enhance. It's like a 3% chance, it's not like, it is a 3% chance depending on the fail stack you have, assuming that you have a high fail stack. It's a 3% chance to get a pen upgrade, but costs you over 1 billion silver per attempt. Do the math. If you make 50 million silver per hour, which is considered pretty decent to good endgame, it'll cost you 20 hours. It will take you 20 hours just for a 3% chance at an upgrade. That's an average of 2,000 hours for 3 pen upgrades, or 666 hours for 1 pen upgrade. That's almost 30 full days of grinding, and if you're grinding 4 hours a day, every day, that's almost half a year. And we all know how the laws of probability work. It's very possible, due to the laws of probability, that you won't even see a pen upgrade for 3 years. I can promise you no one in their right mind can grind 4 hours a day, every day for a year straight. To be clear, I'm not actually against best in slot being so time consuming to get. I'm against the fact that the way to make those gains is so mind-numbingly boring for me. I'm doing something that I find extremely tedious and boring only to maybe see a minor upgrade once a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year if I'm really unlucky. I need to enjoy the content in order to put in a lot of hours. For someone who reached that hard cap in a game and reached the point where gains were extremely minimal, I felt the same way most people would feel beating a single player game. The journey to that point was fun and exciting, but once you reach the end, it's not fun to repeat and play the game over and over again. The TLDR is that I just didn't enjoy the content that you had to do in order to attempt gains that came at a very low chance. I felt like I had to go through a countless number of hours doing something mind-numbing only to maybe see gains once every 6 months, and that was being disciplined enough to only enhance backups. Most people actually go backwards with their gear. Imagine grinding for months only to downgrade your gear. That's BDO in a nutshell. Keep in mind, guys, I was actually on the good side of RNG and was blessed enough to see 2 pen upgrades. Even then, it wasn't enough to keep me in the game. I can't imagine wanting to play being on the other side of it. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me, guys. Hope this gave some perspective, and hope you guys will continue to support me through the next game. Oh, and I do want to mention that this is the last remaining video that I had for BDO, so I do apologize for the quality of it.